Please say good morning and welcome. Doc, did you ever do the radio show with me back many, many times? I thought about that last night, and I thought, Doc did the show a lot with us. First of all, about yourself so people get an idea who you are.
Well, well, Peter, right now I'm working as a criminal defense lawyer in Denver. I grew up in Denver, graduated from Aurora Central High School, went to Metro, got my law degree from DU. So I'm a Denver native, and did live in Boulder for several years after my involvement in the Ramsey case. But I'm back home in Denver now, and glad to be here. I love Colorado.
How did you get pulled into this case?
Well, Peter, I had sold my private investigations business, and shortly thereafter, I had a heart attack. So I wasn't working when I was contacted by Craig Lewis of the Globe. They were looking for somebody who was a private investigator. I had been listed in the World Association of Detectives. They're also looking for somebody with some other skills. I had a law degree, and most importantly to them, I was a handwriting expert. Craig Lewis wanted to find that ransom note, and that's one of the things he engaged me to do. It didn't take me long to figure out who had the ransom note.
Sure.
I just talked to some of the connections I had in town and located the ransom note for him. Following that, I just became more and more deeply involved in the case when Craig Lewis attempted to purchase that ransom note. What he originally did is he asked me to schedule an interview between himself and Donald Vaca, who had the ransom note for the Ramseys. I scheduled that interview, attended it with him, and Lewis, in his inimicable style, offered the man $30,000 for the ransom note.
They offered all kinds of money.
Yeah. Well, I think when you testified...
Well, we need to back it out. There's something called checkbook journalism. And you saw it in O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
And many of the same people, and I actually like those guys immensely, but many of those same people, often they were Irish, they were British, they were Australians, and the tabloids, I think, did a good job with the Ramsey story. And they
read that story.
Oh, absolutely. And they were all run by the same outfit out of Florida.
Well, that happened later in the game. They were separated. They were working as separate entities. There was the Globe, there was the National Enquirer, there was the Star. Later on, after the grand jury indicted but failed to indict the Ramseys.
No, but I again, my timeline, I remember when I got to know Lewis, and because I was taken and shown the ransom note, and then he came and contacted me, and he was offering to buy that note, and I said, I read it, I didn't have it.
Yep.
And they were offering enormous amounts of money for that note.
One time, Lewis offered me $50,000. He was always renting cars.
Yes.
And he showed up in a nice-looking white convertible, and I said, "Nice car, Craig.
Do you want it?"
Yep.
That's what I know.
That's what he said.
I got to know him really well. But there were other guys that all came in. They sort of parachuted these guys in.
Oh, yeah, with a fistful of 100 bills in his pocket.
And they actually did some good stuff.
Oh, they unraveled the case. They were unraveling the case faster than the police could.
Not only that, better than the police did.
Yes. Well, the police have to wait for subpoenas, and they have to wait for and search warrants and judges to sign them. Yeah. These guys were like Rambo from the tabloids. They just called information brokers. They would pay ex-cops. They would hire broken down private investigators who'd had a heart attack. They'd do whatever they needed to get their information.
And they were more than willing. But they had been through OJ.
Well, and that's exactly where Lewis came from. He had just been on the OJ case.
He bought Nicole Brown's diary.
Right.
From what was his first name? Nicole Brown's father's name?
I'm sorry.
I can't think of his name, but he also, and her sister, and he knew them, but he bought the diary for an enormous amount of money.
And, of course, that broke things open.
Absolutely, about abuse and
Yeah.
the rest of that stuff. But he bought. He said to me, we were having a late breakfast at Zadie's over on in Cherry Creek.
Oh, yeah.
And he said to me, he said, "You're looking at the man that bought Nicole Brown's diary." and he also had taken all these different pictures of Princess Diana on what's his name, Dodi Fayed's yacht. I mean, he just had. I mean, and all those guys. I mean, some of them they were from Fleet Street in London.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, they were all these Fleet Street guys, and they were like upstairs thieves. I mean, they. Remember the guys that like go up the, like the guy breaking. They're like, we used to call them, have the nerve of an upstairs thief.
Uh-huh.
And they were ruthless.
Well, they were ruthless, but they were
loved
also
them.
skilled.
I thought I loved them.
One of the advantages they had over, shall we say, the ordinary, the day-to-day press, is, like you said, checkbook journalism.
They were willing.
They were willing, and they applied capitalism to journalism with a capital C.
But also, what was interesting is there was so much laydown here in Denver. We have played our famous tune about the worst reporters, and Paula Woodward, the brown-nosed reporter, and
right.
We named them all. That people that actually accepted that they could go to a special place and meet John and Patsy in a staged event where they had their hired security, and they took out the furniture that was in the room and they made a set.
Yep.
And it was controlled, I think, by Hal Haddon and a couple of those lawyers. And you had to see, and you if you wanted to go see the Ramseys, you had to agree not to ask about the killing of the little girl. And I remember at the time saying, "Oh, I guess you're going to go in and talk to Patsy about the euro." And
well, you remember Pat Corton?
That was the other one. He was their PR guy.
That's right, and he was a professional PR guy.
Well, here's a cool one on that guy. So he was dancing, and he kept calling me up. He said, "I'd like to take you to dinner." I said, "No, I swear to God." I said, "Okay, cool." And so we were going to meet at the what's that place in the Genesee exit? That steakhouse up there.
Steakhouse. Oh,
help me, Sheik.
The landing.
Yeah, there's some. No, it's like
Landing.
Yeah, no, it's the.
It's further west.
Yeah, it's up. It's up. So I said, okay, but I surprised him. The Chart House.
Yeah, that's it.
But I brought Chuck Green. I'm trying to get a hold of Green. I haven't been able to talk to him for a couple of days. But I walked in, and I had Chuck Green with me, and he blanched and didn't want to talk. I said, I brought a witness to what we're going to talk about. He never wanted to talk. He bought dinner, but he didn't want to talk. And so we walked out, Chuck and I walked out laughing. And then like 2 years later, I walk into Denver Press Club. He's sitting at the bar drinking. He was there. He was their PR guy.
Did you have a conversation with him then?
No, he wouldn't talk. And he kept saying, someday we'll talk. I mean, yeah, don't hold your breath.
Well, maybe he'd like to talk to you now.
Yeah, maybe.
There's been kind of a change in the story.
I mean, what a curveball, though. I mean, I remember he said, no, we're going to get together. We're going to get together. I remember calling Hal Haddon, and he answered the phone, and he slammed the phone down on me.
Well, Mr. Haddon's not very happy with me either.
Well, you know what? What we later found out is, I think, and this is just what I believe, I believe that Hal Haddon was the direct link to Paula Woodward, that Hal had defended Paula's ex-husband in an SNL scandal, and I think she had a link to him. I'm just in a supposition.
Well, there were links going on. After all, you remember the Vanity Fair article that came out through Steve Thomas.
And Louise Bardak.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And now here's my Ann Louise story. Ann Louise calls me, and she knew Castro. I mean, this is like all the way around the corner. And she was about half tough. I mean, that's a tough woman.
Uh-huh.
And Ann Louise calls me up. She said, I'm told you're the guy to call. And I said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And she was here. But there were people that were trailing her. They were spying on her. And, I mean, that's how intrigued this thing was. And I don't know who hired the PIs that were following Ann. And I love Ann Louise. So Ann Louise says, let's go. I think she was checked into the Boulderado.
Uh-huh.
And she said, drive up here, pick me up. So I go up and I pick her up. She said, let's go to the house. So I swear to God. I mean, first of all, I got witnesses. Ann Louise would be obviously the witness. Ann Louise and I drive to to the Ramsey's house. And that's when the neighbors used to come out and, scream at you, the nice politically correct Boulderites. Get the F. Remember those people,
I was living there. They were yelling at me across the street.
Yelled at everybody. And so Ann Louise and I park, and we walk up the stairs to the Ramsey's house. And the front door is closed. But remember that side door that was over on the left side?
Uh-huh.
We walked in because the Ramseys were gone. And the door was open. I said, what do you think, Annie? She said, let's go. And we walked into the house, and I saw the kitchen. I saw the circular staircase.
Right.
And Annie was going to head to the basement where the body was found. And here comes some very, very large German woman. To this day, I don't know who she was. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Sure it wasn't Susan Stein?
No, I don't think it was Susan Stein. And get out of here, get out of here. And I said, we're interested in buying, like we were, me and Ann Louise.
Nice dance.
Nice, yeah. And Annie, I remember Annie had a polka dot dress on, and I had on, like a baseball hat, looking like a bum like I always am. She threw us out of the house. Ann Louise hit the home run, but she's the one that hooked up with Dave Thomas, I think.
Oh, I'm sure she did.
Or Steve Thomas, I'm sorry.
Steve Thomas.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because if you look at and what fascinated me is if you look at the typeface used in the Vanity Fair article,
Yep.
and you look at the typeface used in Steve Thomas's book,
Same thing.
identical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, identical.
They knew stuff that was beyond the. All right, hang on. We're coming back. I was hoping it's going to turn out this way, and it has. Lawyer Doc Miller is with us. Now the stories can be told. I got to ask him what he thinks about John Ramsey calling this story that they were going to be indicted is just more drama. Coming up is True Favorites. Ladies and gentlemen, Doc Miller is with us, and we're talking about the Ramsey case. And I asked you before we broke, John Ramsey and this dismissive more drama. I said, BS, John, you're sweating rocks. What's your take on what John Ramsey's thinking about right now?
Well, I imagine he's talking to one of his attack lawyers.
Yeah.
And I imagine he's very concerned about the fact that there's no statute of limitations on murder. And instead of having Mary Lacey up there, who was swooning over Patsy Ramsey,
Right.
now there's a real district attorney up there.
You bet.
Who and what's really offensive about this is I can't see how Mary Lacey couldn't have known.
Oh, she's just a witch.
Yeah.
And what about Michael Tracy?
Oh, Michael.
I said,
It just offends me so much to even hear his name.
And what's amazing, I said that Ward Churchill could not carry Michael Tracy's jock out on the field.
Well, you're right about that.
Yeah.
Nobody could have done more to undermine justice publicly than what Michael Tracy did with his crocumentaries.
No, it's just, I've told the story. He came down we were on Lincoln Street. Excuse me, I take it back. We were down on Lawrence Street. And he was going to do this documentary. So he came in with a clipped British, sophisticated guy. And actually, he got in bed with Channel 9 a little bit, too.
Yeah.
And so he said, let's do it. And I said, sure. I said, love to do it. Oh, good. And I said, let's bring all your equipment, come into the studio, KHW, set up your lights and your cameras, and we'll go on the air together. We'll do the interview. And for every time you ask me a question, I get to ask you a question after I answer. And the first, I swear to God, it's a true story. I said, the first guy that doesn't answer loses. You want to play? And he said no. And he said, let it. And he kept saying, and he was trying to get like he was some kind of a badass or something. And I said, come on, Michael, I'll do your television interview or your movie interview. Come on to K-House Studio. You sit in that chair. I'll sit in this chair. You can light the thing up. We'll ask each other questions. He punked out. He's a punk now. He's a punk then. He punked out and he left. And then he said all kinds of derogatory stuff. I have witnesses to him punking out in the newsroom at Clear Channel.
Well, he was from the journalism school.
Absolutely
at the University of Colorado.
Yeah.
And that journalism school had lost its accreditation.
Yeah.
Now, here's the kicker. When David Kendall, of the famous Lewinsky scandal,
Sure.
came to Colorado to get Craig Lewis out of charges,
Yep.
they paid a $100,000 bribe to the University of Colorado to give to the journalism department to develop an ethics study.
Yeah.
That shows you where Michael Tracy came
Well,
from.
he's the worst. I don't know how he keeps the job.
Well, he keeps a job probably because he's got tenure, and there's a political, I don't know, a political ideology at the University of Colorado that appears to be consistent with unethical conduct.
There's all
or
kinds
Churchill.
There's all kinds of stuff about his private life, and he's fair game to me.
Yeah.
What he did was so destructive, and how he groomed John Mark Carr, just like a sex predator grooms a kid. And he had that witch Mary Lacey, Mary Keenan, and
in the palm of his hand.
Absolutely.
And It astounds me that our criminal justice system could have sunk so low in Boulder. You start with Alex Hunter, who would have nothing to do with the prosecution he knew he would lose.
Yeah.
He hands it off to the grand jury. He makes a big to-do about it. And then, of course, he could have gotten justice out of this.
Sure.
They never called John and Patsy into the grand jury.
Right. No. Or remember Aunt Pam, crazy Aunt Pam?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Pam Paw.
Pam Paw. I can't wait to get in front of that grand jury. Really?
Yeah.
I remember the time she said, I speak to Johnny B every night. And I told her, I didn't tell her directly. I said, well, for God's sake, ask her who killed her. Remember she said, Johnny B and I talk every night. Really? Next time you talk to her, ask her who killed her.
You know, it was Pam Paw who the police took over to the house.
Yeah.
To gather a few belongings.
They took everything out of it they wanted to.
She took any evidence they needed.
Gone. That was burned or whatever the hell happened to it. Well, your trial when you went through that trial, and this is like we're playing inside baseball. My son is a little kid at the time. We all end up in a courtroom. I testify in Doc's trial, and my son, because he took the subpoena, Morgan had to go to Jefferson.
It was a zoo.
Hey, hang on. Come on. We're getting another hour of this. It makes me feel good to sit there and listen to Doc talk. His book had to be published abroad. I know it's inside baseball, but John Ramsey, you're sweating bullets right now, son, and you know it. And all these people, Mary Lacey and Michael Tracy and all the laydowns, and we were thinking Paula Woodward's book. Let's see if that ever happens. Hang on, everyone.